what Roy Jones said, and he got veto stamp. That's for damn sure. Let's finish up with a little bit of college football talk. Myself, Joe Bellon, here at Georgia State University. The Fighting Panthers currently 1-7.
Not so fighting.
Sean Ridley. So what?
Not so fighting.
Not so fighting. That is true. Sean Ridley is at App State. Sean, what is App State's record? 1-7.
Don't ask me that question, man. That's D2 football. I love App State.
That's a common question.
But no, man, we played like Wofford last week and lost. I could care less.
All right, moving on. So, with that being said, we've got an interview with Ben Moore coming up soon. That'll be posted out there for you guys to listen to. But let's talk about major college football for a second. Is it Alabama and everybody else, or is there another threat out there for Alabama?
It's Alabama and everybody else. I mean, who else is in the SEC? Who else plays?
Florida.
Yeah, but Florida doesn't look like Alabama. What I'm saying.
How dare you say that when Neil Blackman is near you?
Well, Neil Blackman will say they don't look like Alabama either. Neil's not a crazy man, at least unless it comes to American soccer, and then he is crazy. But there's no one that looks like Alabama who plays the kind of competition that Alabama plays, and their path in the West is a lot clearer this year than it has been in the past. I don't know who can beat them, and it's not because I'm an SEC homer. I think the SEC is kind of having an off year in a lot of ways, but who can? I can't think of an argument for why someone else would be favored above them at this point.
I mean, they still have to play LSU at the end of the season. Anything can happen on the football game. In terms of the other top 5 teams, I don't think that any of them necessarily have the balance that Alabama has, let alone the dominance of their defense. Like, Florida's defense has been pretty great this season. It's definitely sustained them throughout, but their offense is not up to par at all. Who else do we have in there? We have Oregon, who, yeah, they can put 60, 70 points up on the board, but I don't think Alabama's going to let them do that. And I don't think that their defense is going to stop Alabama's offense, which, when you talk about the SEC, normally you think of them being, not necessarily slow, but it's defense-driven. And I don't think that that's true with this Alabama team. They're putting it together, they're putting points on the board, and they're letting their defense dictate to other teams, which makes their offense a lot easier. I mean, the dark horses are Notre Dame, who I don't really believe, and maybe Kansas State, but they still got to prove themselves. It's really hard just to, just say these people who I'll admit I haven't seen a game of, who are playing great right now, are going to be able to take down Alabama, who is a proven winner.
If you're a betting man, do you call Alabama? Who do you call in the finals against Alabama?
That's the better question.
Is it USC? Is it Kansas State? Is it who is it?
Oregon. I'll take Oregon. If we're calling for who plays them in the finals, it's Oregon. My opinion. I think Notre Dame, however, is an interesting question because of, one, is Notre Dame. It's kind of the revival story. Can you imagine the amount of media attention Notre Dame will get if they go into USC, which is their last game of the season, and beat USC? How would anyone deny Notre Dame of a number 2 ranking in the polls? I think if Notre Dame goes undefeated and Oregon's undefeated, I think Notre Dame gets in. But I think the best team outside of Alabama is probably Florida, and we'll get to see how they match up against them. It appears probably in the SEC championship game. Stranger things have happened in the SEC. The better question is, Alabama is so far ahead of everyone else. If Florida beats them in the SEC title game, does Alabama fall out of the number 2 slot?
No.
Well, no. What's Oregon's strength of schedule going to be like at the end of the year?
Oregon, I just looked at this. Oregon still has to play USC. They still have to play Stanford, and they have to play another team that's in the top 10. I think that the team that honestly has the best chance of making it is Kansas State, because all they have left is to play Texas. Now, that becomes a question of the BCS and the computers and all this other stuff. But in terms of teams that they have to play and the chances of still being undefeated, Kansas State, man.
It's really tragic that this is not the beginning of the +1 year. This would be a great +1 year.
Yes.
Yeah.
This would be an awesome +1 year.
I want to see these teams go at it.
I have to say, I am personally depressed that Notre Dame is playing this well. My father, I was raised to hate Notre Dame. My father never uttered a racist word against a black person or an Asian person or Hispanic person in his life, but he taught me more racial slurs against Irish people and Catholic people than anyone should ever have a right to know. I was raised to hate Notre Dame. And
all because of Notre Dame? That's some serious thing.
My father had a powerful hate for Notre Dame, and I was raised to believe that Notre Dame was evil. And my father passed this summer, and I certainly wish he was still here. But if he was, he'd be apoplectic at how well Notre Dame is doing it right now. You got to feel like I always felt like God was too afraid to let Notre Dame do well while Dad was still alive for fear of upsetting him. But now he's passed. They're doing well. I can only hope that Notre Dame's heart gets broken. I almost wish Notre Dame would end up in the BCS final game with Alabama just to watch Notre Dame get crushed.
That might be the cruel irony of all of this.
That might be the coolest irony, is that they will get smoked if they play Notre Dame.
But the problem with that is, and this should be a somewhat of a concern for BCS fans in general, is that if Notre Dame doesn't lose a couple of games, it doesn't matter if they win the BCS championship or not. People are going to be back on top of this Notre Dame, the greatness of Notre Dame myth, and we're going to have to live with them forever again.
No, we are. I'd be remiss
going anywhere.
Yeah, I'd be remiss before we get out of here. We haven't had a chance to talk about Penn State after the entire scandal. I don't. Let me pull them up. I don't know what their record is right now. But it seems like Notre Dame is kind of weathered. They've had a couple of transfers. I think Notre Dame is going to come out of this.
You mean Penn State?
Football-wise.
You mean Penn State?
Let's not talk about anything else, but just football-wise.
Well, whoever I forget the coach's name, but they ought to give him a raise right now. I know Penn State's not famous for paying a lot for their coaches, and some of that's just because of who Paterno was and how he lived his life. But it's an amazing story that they aren't just getting crushed all the time this year. And
they're 5-2, 3-0 in the Big Ten.
Say what you
they're
want.
5-2?
Yeah. And they were 0-2 to start off.
Yeah, that's what I remember. I thought that continued.
Well, and say what you want to about the university and Sandusky and all that. It's not the fault of the kids that were there. It's not the fault of anyone who's still associated with the football team. And I'm happy for them. I'm happy that those kids have something good happening to them. And whatever they're paying their coach, it's not enough.
The biggest story there is that there hasn't been a story. Yep. The coach has been able to keep them out of the news. There hasn't been any further trouble, and they're back to being able to focus on football games, which apparently they're winning. Yep. And so once that happens, that's far beyond any expectations, because you expect some kind of repercussions. You expect that once they start losing a few games, there's going to be some fissures. People are going to start asking them questions. Are you going to make it without Paterno? I haven't heard Joe Potter's name in some time, and the fact that has happened, pretty amazing.
Yep.
I don't think I could have said it any better myself. The fact that all you hear about with Penn State right now was football. Not the craziness of Jerry Sandusky, not the tragedy, I don't know if that's correct, for the end of the life of Joe Paterno, but it's football. Like they have the chance to win the Big Two. Imagine if Penn State goes to the Rose Bowl as a Big Ten champion. After everything this offseason's been like, imagine that story.
They can't.
Of them going to the Rose Bowl.
They can't. They cannot go to the Rose Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
They are banned from
postseason
play.
Oh yeah,
that would be an incredible story if they went to the Rose Bowl, because it would mean the NC2A completely changed their mind.
But think about it like this though. Look at it this way: if they go not in the
yeah,
like it's still one of those things you're just like that's amazing. They're gonna win 9-3.
It's amazing they're 5-2.
Right.
Yeah,
they've lost scholarship players. They've lost the entire coaching staff. They're still winning football games.
Yep.
Impressive. If only UGA had a good enough coaching staff like that, maybe they win some games. So